Hi, my name is Shayna Conde, and welcome to Accessibility Check-In, a space where I talk about accessibility within the hospitality space. Today, I am talking about the fact that I am in a hotel that is made from a police station as a Black American woman. It's interesting. Suffragettes were imprisoned here. The Oscar Wilde was here. The guy who killed Martin Luther King, he's part of this history. There's a lot in this space, right? And when I came here, I didn't know a lot about the history of policing in the UK. All I know is the trauma of experiencing policing in the United States as a Black woman. If you're Black, you get it. If you're not, you watch the news. So, in walking through this space, I had so many questions because I had a wonderful facial yesterday, but the space where the facial was happening, and mind you, gorgeous as it was in a part of the hotel that still has the locks and the doors and all of that, the cells from where the women were imprisoned. And that was actually where the suffragettes were held. But they took that space and they turned it into a space to host woman-owned businesses in the UK and to partner with them within the hotel. And I'm like, interesting. And then I had a tour today because at the very bottom of, not the very bottom, but on the grounds of the hotel, there is a police history museum that talks about the history of policing as it relates to this building. Because so much of policing history, in part kind of internationally, but definitely in the UK, comes through here. So in learning about that, one, mind you, I'm an American. I'm just saying my thoughts. It seems as though, yes, racial tensions, it's the UK. You know, the UK taught America. They said, hey, here's the groundwork, do something with it. And the US said, bet. So, with that in mind, back in the day, the UK had 200 offenses that could lead to execution. The next country, like the UK was number one, number two was France. The French had six. The French had six offenses that could lead to execution. And I was like, I see the connection. I see the connection between how the absurdity of that and the absurdity of the United States policing system, me personally. But it also sounds like, as it relates to this building, there's been a lot of history that they're not trying to hide away from. They're not trying to cover up and put flowers over, even though technically the like greenhouse space, which is where the Nomad Hotel is covered in like greenery and flowers, which is interesting. But they're also not trying to hide the fact that the UK has a complicated history with policing, especially as it relates to people of color. In 1967 was when this old police station hired their first Black police officer. And then I think in the 70s, they hired their first Asian police woman and then policeman. The way that our tour guide explained it to us is that they hired these people from communities outside of the white community that had done all of the policing since then, was so that way these individuals could then go into their communities and police effectively in a way that, one, they spoke the same language, because the Asian woman, I think she was Chinese, and she spoke Mandarin. So she was able to go back to her community, speak the language of the community, and say, hey, listen, it's me, I'm with you, you're with me, come to me with your problems. There's less layers of differentiation between the people enforcing the law and the people that have to live under the law. So I was like, that's not what happens in the United States. Well, like by and large, there are some communities that are trying, but by and large, that's not. So I learned, obviously not the whole everything, but I did learn a lot about the history of policing in the UK versus the United States. And I don't know, it still feels weird. I don't have a word for it yet, but it does feel weird. Doing the tour here, she said that there were people that would come in this hotel. Well, the hotel wasn't made yet, but the prison that this hotel is literally based off of closed in 1992, which is pretty recent. So there were people that were imprisoned here that were held here, because it wasn't a prison, it was like a jail. But like there were people that were held here that still return. And sometimes they see the cells that they were held in, which are now part of the museum, and they go, wow, look at how my life has changed. And I go, I can't think of a single person in the United States that would take like a trip down memory lane to a jail. It's fascinating. It's fascinating. You don't have to stay at the hotel to go to the museum. You could go to the museum on its own. Ask the questions, ask the big questions, especially if you're a marginalized person, because they are very open to having that conversation. It's a small team of people that are running this museum. It's only 3 people, but they're doing the best that they can. I can genuinely say that they are doing the best that they can to keep themselves informed and to keep the conversation alive. So if you're curious about the history of policing in the UK, like, I would stop by here. And it's a small museum. It's not a space where you spend like 12 hours, right? I mean, not that you would spend 12 hours at a museum. It's not a space that you would spend more than like an hour, unless the conversation creates that space. But yeah, it's interesting. I think those are all of my feelings for right now. Not I think, I'm practicing definites. Those are all of my feelings for right now when it comes to this. If you have any feelings though, please feel free to type them in the comments, because let us not forget accessibility. Yes, it is about people that are disabled or people that have mobility needs or just physical kind of accommodations. But I also believe, as somebody that lives within the intersection, that accessibility also means accessible to people in all forms of margins. So as a Black person, understanding the history of the spaces that I'm in a way that makes me feel more comfortable makes spaces more accessible to me and people like me, regardless of if you are disabled, of if you have any physical kinds of amenities that are needed. Being safe in your heart and being safe in your mind when you enter a space is also very important when it comes to the conversation of accessibility. So with that in mind, if you have any questions, comments, concerns, thoughts, especially if you're from the UK, and there's some pieces of this that I did not know, should know. If you have comments about do I want to open up that door? I don't know if I want to open up that door, because things can get a little hot and heated. But yeah, if you have some important histories and things, comments, concerns, questions, please let me know. And since I'm going to be living in Europe for who knows how long, if there are other places that you are curious about, I'm here. I will visit them and give you an accessible rundown. So that is all for Accessibility Check-In for today, and I will see you soon. Bye.